a bipartisan infrastructure law program that we at FRA are very excited about. And we have the notice of funding opportunity available right now. We hope many of you will apply to the program. Obviously, it's going to be very, very competitive, and there's a limited amount of funding available, unfortunately, but we look forward to reviewing your applications. The Rail Research and Development Center of Excellence is a unique opportunity for the FRA to advance rail-related research in all aspects. The Center of Excellence, funded through the funding opportunity that you will hear about today, will help provide research opportunities that involve advancing the safety, efficiency, and reliability of passenger and freight rail transportation. Those areas of research could include the fields of rolling stock, positive train control systems, human factors, rail infrastructure, grade crossings, and network resiliency, to name only a few. Unlike other funding opportunities, the Center of Excellence is in partnership with the FRA and would be responsible for the establishment and maintenance of the Center of Excellence, as well as the administration of grants that fund those research activities directly to institutes of higher education or a consortium of those higher education institutes. At the Center of Excellence, the main focus is the topic today, but I want to highlight that FRA has other opportunities to conduct rail-related research, such as through FRA's broad agency announcements, of which I hope you're aware, where the Office of Rail Research and Development solicits directly opportunities and submissions from you all. And we really want to thank you for taking the time to join us here today. I wanted to be a part of it because I know that this series of webinars that we've been doing related to our bipartisan infrastructure law programs are an important venue to get the information out about the programs, to highlight them, but also to answer questions that you may have. And we want to thank you and really appreciate your passion for advancing rail-related research, because we definitely need it. We need it to make sure that there is world-class rail service available to Americans, as well as advancing freight rail and passenger rail safety. So back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Administrator Bose. So my name is Ryan Arbuckle. I'm the Chief of Program Coordination and Strategy, and today I'm joined with two of my colleagues from the Office of Research and Development, Michelle Geary and Tarek Omar. If you two would like to say hello and give a little introduction of yourself, feel free to.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Tarek Omar, Program Manager at the Rolling Stock Research and Development Division. I will be glad to work with you all to get this done quickly. And feel free to contact me if you have any technical question regarding this program. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Geary. I'm Senior Advisor in the Office of Research, Development, and Technology.
All right, so our little roadmap today for our webinar, we're going to kind of go through, like I said initially, the overview of the program itself, talk about how to apply to federal grant programs in case there's interested applicants who may never have applied to a federal grant program before, and then talk through some best practices on two elements that we commonly see are I don't want to say lacking, but could use a little more support or a little more justification in applications, just broadly. You know, these are kind of lessons learned as we look to administrate grant programs across FRA. And then if we have some time, we'll open it up to some Q&A. On the Q&A, I do want to say that The Q&A is going to be really limited to the information that's presented within the notice of funding opportunity, right? So again, to provide context, this notice provides funding on the establishment, maintenance, and administration of the Center of Excellence, and is not directly related to the research funding that the center will then obligate out. So the questions will really, the questions that we can kind of provide insight on are not project specific or technical assistance on how you should shape your project, but more so focused on the nuts and bolts of how to apply for the program and a little bit of insight into the program as far as providing any clarity that we can within the guides of what's published within the notice. So I just want to have clear expectations of what we can and won't be able to kind of provide insight into. So to dive right in, we are going to talk about the program. So what are we talking about? The program is to fund a rail research and development center of excellence to advance research and development that improves safety, efficiency, and reliability of the rail transportation network. The NOFO was published earlier this month, and applications are due by 5 p.m. on July 3rd. So a note real quick about the application due date. There was a slight error in the original notice, and you'll see a reference to a date in June. That is an incorrect date. Applications are due by 5 p.m. Eastern Time on July 3rd. A correction was put out, but again, just to kind of reiterate, applications are due by 5 p.m. on Eastern Time on July 3rd. I will note that 5 p.m. is a hard deadline. If your application comes in at 5:01, it is considered late and will not be reviewed. Again, it is set in Eastern Time as well. So for any applicants that are on the West Coast, this is 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, I want to reiterate that. It may seem like a very silly thing to kind of hammer home, but we've had applicants be late, and unfortunately, we are not allowed to review your application if it is late. So what are the applicants that we're kind of looking for, the eligible applicants under this program? An ideal applicant is one that possesses, a strong past performance of rail-related research, education, and workforce development. They're looking to involve both public and private sector passenger and freight rail operators to kind of help establish and maintain that center of excellence, right? So looking to incorporate in that public-private partnerships, both the integration of that rail infrastructure and the rail ownership into that center of excellence as well. And also looking to the applicant would have really strong regional and national impacts that align with the DOT strategic goals. And we'll get to some of those goals here in just a minute. So this is, again, the activities that when we're talking about the establishment of this NOFO and what it's funding, these are the activities that the Notice of Funding Opportunity is directly funding. And it is the establishment of the center to advance the research. It is the maintenance of the center, and it's the providing the administrating grants through the Center of Excellence. So again, it's very limited activities as to what the notice, this funding opportunity is providing funding for. Specifically, it is not providing funding directly for the research itself, but rather it is providing funding to establish a Center of Excellence that will then do the administrating the grants that will provide for that research. So it's just a little point of clarity there. I know that sometimes the statute and the NOFO may be a little confusing as far as what the activities are eligible and the requirements, especially with this notice. However, just to be very clear, it is establishing the center, maintaining the center, and administrating the grants through the center. So this slide here is what the center itself, once established, these are the activities that the center, the research activities and areas that the center will then administer grants through. So this is the areas that are not directly funded through this notice, but that the Center of Excellence will provide funding to further. So again, it's safety, it's sustainability, positive train control, human factors, right? Grade crossing research, all of these research areas, a large list of research opportunities that the center will look to administer grants to institutes of higher education and consortiums of those institutes. So award information. So for FY 22 and 23, we have the notice is funding up to $5 million to advance the establishment, maintenance, and administration of the Center of Excellence. No more than one award can be made under this notice. So it is to establish a single Center of Excellence. And the funds need to be spent, the $5 million needs to be spent within 2 years within the of obligation of it. And there is a 50% non-federal match requirement, which means the applicant needs to provide 50% of the funding match. So some key definitions here when we talk about consortiums. For the purpose of this NOFO, it means a meaningful arrangement of members involving in the planning and implementation of the proposed activities. An institute of higher education is defined by statute. So it's an educational institution in a state that meets those specific requirements. The NOFO kind of provides a lot more information on this, as well as we have a link to the statute in which the definition is defined and we are pulling back from. For minority serving institutions, again, we just to give a clear definition as a single minority or combination of minorities exceeding 50% of the total enrollment of the IHE. And it is further defined in the sections that you see here of Section 365 of the Higher Education Act, and we provide that reference as well for more clarity. Same thing with HBCUs. We provide more clarity as to those specific definitions within the NOFO, but I want to call those out because we want to be very clear as to these would be the applicants that the center would be providing those grants to, right? The institutes of higher education and would look to be working with those minority serving and HBCU institutions as part of the establishment and maintenance and administration of the grants. So, as Administrator Bose had mentioned, there are other funding opportunities to conduct rail-related research. Aside from the broad agency announcement that the Office of Research and Development puts forth annually, we have the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements Program, which has an opportunity for universities to partner to come in and with grant applications for rail research, as well as to partner with entities to promote that rail research as well. So more information on that program can be found on FRA's Bill website, and the link is provided here below. And again, these slides will be published on the FRA website, as well as the recording of this webinar shortly following. So to get into some of the details about how FRA is going to be looking at the program evaluation and selection criteria as it pertains to establishing the Center of Excellence. So when we're looking at the project benefits, FRA is going to assess the capacity of that center to address rail transportation problems and advance rail transportation expertise and technology. And we provide a few examples, that should be included. Higher standards within the national arena of rail transportation research, the extent to which the COE program will have regional and national impacts, and the COE should have demonstrated leadership in the development and delivery of programs. So this needs to be articulated and clearly kind of outlined within the application for it, because these are the criteria that are outlined within the notice of funding opportunity that FRA will be evaluating. Also, to the extent to which the applicant will involve the public and private sector passenger and freight rail operators as part of that engagement and establishment of the center, as well as seeking that input, that technical input, as part of the research process of those entities. Furthermore, the degree to which the applicant proposed activities are multimodal and multidisciplinary, right? We want to, one of the departmental goals is to kind of make sure that we are building a stronger infrastructure, not just rail infrastructure, but infrastructure. So to the extent that the applicant's activities that they're looking to propose have those sort of large scale, multidisciplinary and multimodal aspects to them. And then the extent to the applicant's background in education and workforce development efforts, right? The main main purpose of this funding opportunity is to establish the center and maintain and administer it. So we're looking to see how the applicant's management of the COE will result in the development of that transportation workforce that is really prepared to kind of further that research out. Furthermore, evidence in if committed or working with underrepresented and underserved communities. This is that mention of that minority serving institutions or HBCUs, right? We want to see that the center has evidence and is working to partner with MSIs and HBCUs as part of the development of the COE. And then again, a couple more points, the extent to which the proposal incorporates the Executive Order 14008 in its research plans. And again, that we have a link to the executive order and more information is provided within the notice of funding opportunity. And to the extent to which the applicant demonstrates the ability for preparation to support meaningful research soon after the grant is awarded, because we have that 2-year time limit in which the funds need to be spent. So the applicant needs to demonstrate that they have the capacity and ability to obligate grants and really get that going once the grant is awarded. So on the technical merit side, the FRA is going to evaluate the applicant's existing expertise and ability to evaluate support proposed research activities, looking to see just the general ability of that center of the applicant to conduct research and manage the process, right? This is a little bit different than FRA's traditional grant programs, in which FRA is the grant provider for the actual specific projects. In this case, the center itself will be the grant administrator. So it needs to demonstrate that it has the experience and can successfully manage and oversee subawards consistent with 2 CFR Part 200 and the DOT strategic goals. Part of that is identifying performance metrics that those subawards might need to meet to justify and show that they're being good stewards of the federal dollar. An applicant's management approach and procedures and how the planning activities will be implemented moving forward. So all of those criteria are one outlined within the NOFO, as well as are the basis in which FRA will evaluate for selection. So selection preferences, there's 2 in this NOFO. Extent to which an applicant demonstrates strong past performance in rail research, education, and workforce development, and the extent to which an applicant proposes a non-federal share of total project costs greater than 50%. So again, the 50% is the minimum, but to the extent that the applicant shows that they are going to put more money in to it, there's a selection preference towards that. And as we mentioned, the DOT strategic goals. So the DOT strategic goals here are safety, economic strength and global competitiveness, equity, climate and sustainability, and transformation. And I think we have a little bit more on those here. Yep. So some key departmental objectives on 3 of those departmental goals. So safety, FRA will assess the project's ability to foster the safe transportation system. Really looking to make sure that rail research is, safety is the #1 priority at the department and at FRA. So making sure that rail research really aligns and is improving the safety of the overall transportation system. For the economic strength and global competitiveness, FRA will assess the project's ability to contribute to the economic progress stemming from the investment and associated creation of jobs within the industry. So looking to see how that research is going to help further the infrastructure investment and really show what job creation is going to come as part of the completion of that research. And then with equity, FRA will assess the project's ability to address equity and barriers to opportunity to the extent possible within the program and consistent with the law. So I'm going to take a breath real quick, as I know I talk really fast, and give me a second while I just take a drink of water, and then we're going to go into the NOFO overview and how to apply. Specifically, this is an important section if you've never applied to a federal grant before, especially one with FRA. There are some certain requirements that you might not be aware of, so we want to kind of make sure we talk through those before you go to apply for your grant. So key parts of the notice of funding opportunity. 1, what is the notice? It announces the grant opportunity, contains details about the application requirements, procedures and selection criteria that FRA will use to evaluate the project. And it is the authoritative source of information related to this funding opportunity. What does that mean? It means that this is your ticket, right, to get in. This is your, there's always an ask of applicants of what can I do to elevate my application and how can I, differentiate it from others. Well, all of that information is contained within the notice of funding opportunity. It is the source of information, and we highly encourage applicants to read the notice of funding opportunity thoroughly and to have a good understanding of the requirements, both the requirements like documentation requirements, as well as the merit-based objectives that FRA will be evaluating. So here's some key parts. We have the program summary, the key dates, the addresses, and FRA contacts. All those information. If you have technical questions about how to apply, we have some contact information within the notice. Key dates as to when the application period closes, and a little bit about the program summary. On the contact information, we will have that here in a little bit. What I will note is that we are unable to answer project-specific questions, and really the questions need to be related to information that is presented within the notice of funding opportunity. It's consistent with how we address all of our programs. This is a competitive program, and therefore we really need to keep all the information really contained within the notice, and not really speak too much to project-specific elements. One key area in the notice is the table of contents, and it provides kind of a roadmap of some of the sections and how to kind of structure your application, specifically looking at eligibility information, application submission information. This is an area where it will highlight the required forms that need to be submitted with your application, which is key. If you do not submit the required forms, your application is deemed ineligible and is not, or incomplete and is not reviewed. So you need to make sure that you are submitting all the complete forms and meeting all the requirements within the notice when you submit your application. So where do you start? Well, you can start by looking at our FRA's website, in which we provide links to both registration for this webinar, as hopefully you found, and also we'll have the link for the recording posted, but also provides the notice of funding opportunity link. And gives a brief overview of the requirements and some of the information about the notice itself. It can be reached at this website that you have here. And again, the presentation slides will be made available on FRA's website as well. So here's a link to the Federal Register, and you again notice those key dates. That second link is that correction. The way the Federal Register corrections work is they do not replace, but they just kind of a log that a correction has been made for the record. So you will see that there is still that conflict of that June 16th or June 15th date on there. Please disregard that date. The application submission date is July 3rd by no later than 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So to apply, go to grants.gov. And you can search this keyword here of 20.313, and that will bring up the Rail Research and Development Excellence Center of Excellence Grant Program. And when you click on that link, it'll bring you to the summary information about the grant opportunity in grants.gov. Within there, you'll see the closing date, the estimated program funds, and a little bit about the program itself. And then that leads you kind of to, how do I apply? Well, first you need to obtain a unique entity identifier, apologies, and register early in the federal government system for award management, the SAM. SAM registration can take some time. FRA does not control this registration process and cannot expedite the process at all. So if you've never applied for a federal grant before, please register with SAM. You are not able to apply for this program if you do not have a SAM, if you have not applied for SAM. So again, I cannot stress that enough. FRA has no control over the SAM's registration, and it is the only way in which you will be able to apply through grants.gov for this program. So let's talk about what you include. So required documentations, project narrative, statement of work to include the scope, schedule, budget, and performance measures. The CV for key personnel, limited to 2 pages per individual. Anything over 2 pages is not considered. So please limit that to 2 pages per individual. And any environmental compliance documentation. Now, this program is a little different than some of our capital programs. However, after selection, FRA will work with grantees to ensure the compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, requirements. Additionally, you need to provide the SF424 for the center, not for the subawards at time of application. Again, the NOFO is covering the establishment, maintenance, and administration of the Center of Excellence, not the subawards that the center will make. Additionally, you need to provide the FRA F30, which is the additional assurances and certifications, as well as the applicant financial capability questionnaire and the SFLLL, which is the disclosure of lobbying activities. It's imperative that you provide these forms. Again, if your application does not include the required forms or required documentation, it is considered incomplete and is not reviewed. So if you are unsure, that was a lot of information right there. If you're unsure and you're like, well, I have questions, what other forms do I need to do? Where's the NOFO? If you go into the grants.gov, you'll find some additional information, which will give you some contact information, both for grants.gov if you're having technical issues with grants.gov, as well as links to the NOFO, just in case you need to kind of, find specific information within it. And again, at the end of this presentation, there will be an email box. We'll provide an email box that you can email with technical questions about how to apply or stuff of that nature. So let's go through the application process. You have your application, you have your required forms, you've submitted it before 5 p.m. on July 3rd. What now? Well, FRA will receive all those applications, and we do what's called an intake and eligibility review, where we review each application for completeness and determine the eligibility based on the criteria that are outlined within the notice of funding opportunity. After that, we then move into evaluations, and we look at each application and evaluate it based off the technical merit and project benefits that are outlined within the notice of funding opportunity. Based on those evaluations, FRA then proposes recommendations to the senior review team in OST, which is a group of senior officials that then make recommendations for the administrator to propose forward. After that, FRA then makes the announcements on selections. That process, that 4-step process, can take anywhere from 7 to 9 months following application due dates. So please keep in mind that it's a process in which FRA has to adhere to, as this is a competitive program and requires us to take certain steps to ensure that we are following that competitive process. So if you're unsure and unfamiliar with the larger kind of grant application process, we have a very helpful kind of informational graphic on our website that kind of walks you through step by step how to apply to a federal program, and kind of gives you some timelines as well, so you can work backwards to know, when you need to start certain things. Because again, if you have not registered for sam.gov, that can hinder your ability to actually apply. And again, that is out of FRA's control. We have no bearing on sam.gov registration. So let's talk some best practices and lessons learned in 2 areas, both the project narrative and the statement of work. These are 2 areas in which we see commonly in applications that can use a little more strengthening or a little more justification in certain areas. So we kind of like to highlight these and walk through them step by step, more or less. So starting with the project narrative. So what is the project narrative? It consists of the elements that you kind of see here: cover page, summary, funding, eligibility criteria, location, the description and research plan for the COE, the evaluation, and the implementation. So you need to adhere to the page limit that's outlined within the NOFO, and I do believe it is 25 pages. That may actually be an error. I apologize for that. Whatever the page limit is outlined within the NOFO is the adhered page limit. It may be 25, and I apologize for not being 100% on that. But the key here is get to the nuts and bolts of the project, right? We really want to understand the benefits and the project, and this is your area to really kind of provide that to us. And it's very important to structure your application based off the NOFO. The NOFO is your guideline. It is your reference. It is your source material to kind of to create your application. So your cover page, what is that? It is a list of information to include like the program that you're applying for, the year, the lead applicant, your total cost, and some of the other elements that kind of are your first information that you're providing us. And more information, again, all of these areas, more information is provided within the NOFO. So this is, please take all of the information here as just like a summary of what could be in those sections. For the project summary, this is exceptionally important. Please provide a brief project description, 4 to 6 sentences, its anticipated benefits, the challenges, and that the project will address. And here again, when we say project, we're speaking about the creation of the Center of Excellence. This project summary is your first pitch to FRA and to the DOT Secretary and FRA administrator, apologies, as to why your application is like the best, right? This is your opportunity to sell us on your project, and it should be a brief kind of outline of the anticipated benefits and the challenges that the project will address. So project funding, you need to break down your project funding. If you have in-kind match that you're using, and you need to break that down, and it needs to be consistent with CFR 2 Part 200, 2 CFR Part 200. Apologies, I struggle with that sometimes. And you need to specifically identify each source of non-federal match. So if you have multiple sources, you need to identify the source and the amount that source is providing, so that all of those can kind of roll up to make up that no greater than 50% federal share. You need to indicate if the match is public or private, and talk through if there's any funding arrangements or whatever. This area is commonly not very clear and can be a hurdle sometimes in evaluating the project if the project funding is not clearly articulated to FRA. So I encourage you to be very clear and concise with how you are presenting your project funding breakdown. So we're going to skip over the applicant eligibility and project eligibility, as we already covered those earlier on, and kind of move to the location. So here we really want to identify where the location of the Center of Excellence will be established. Provide geospatial data if you have, if the center is a physical location of within the university or what have you. So this is a little, we don't anticipate this being like a huge part of your application, but to the extent possible, please provide a location information as to where the center will physically be located if there's a physical location for it. This area, the detailed COE description and research plan, there is much more detail provided within the NOFO, but I tried to capture, we tried to capture a couple of key elements within here that need to be addressed. Identifying how, expanding upon the brief program summary that you provided earlier on, looking at providing that background on the challenges that the COE looks to address, the benefits of it, including those rail operators, if applicable, that will benefit, basic and applied research and how its potential impacts that it might have, and how the applicant would conduct any research within its own organization, as well as in collaboration with the consortium members, if it's applicable. But again, there is much more information within the NOFO on this section. So please, again, I will say this over and over again, read the notice of funding opportunity in its entirety to get a better understanding of the requirements for each of these sections. Include a separate section that focuses on, for the evaluation and selection criteria, that focuses on how the project meets each of the evaluation and selection criteria. Please do not rely on FRA to make connections within your detailed project descriptions and for us to make assumptions based on how you meet it. We want you to be explicitly clear as to the areas and how you're meeting each of the selection and evaluation criteria. Wherever possible, quantify benefits. Now, a benefit cost analysis is not required as part of this application. However, it helps, wherever you're able to quantify those benefits, that's all the better. And then again, with the last element, the implementation and management, kind of really clearly articulate how oversight and management of the program is going to be and how it's going to conform to federal requirements. Especially with this program, I think it would be exceptionally important because the center is going to be the administrator of the grants in collaboration with FRA, whereas typically FRA is the primary grant awardee. So this is an area where applicants need to demonstrate or should demonstrate how they intend to ensure that they're good stewards of the federal dollar and provide past experience in any management and overseeing of similar efforts. So the just kind of best practices and some helpful hints here. Again, read the NOFO completely and carefully to understand each section. Really make sure that you're understanding your project narrative and statement of work sections within the notice. Again, the notice is your key to success within this program, as it outlines all the requirements that are set forth under the program. So as we kind of come into the statement of work. So FRA has a few templates that are published on our website. The templates include, things such as the statement of work, schedule, budget, performance measures, and all of these are encouraged for applicants to use as they are kind of developed to kind of meet the FRA requirements and really develop to help applicants understand what we're looking for. We have guidance and examples of some of these attachments on that website as well. So I'd encourage interested applicants to visit that website and familiarize yourself with those templates. Again, this is a statement of work. You want to organize your scope of work within logical sequential steps and provide that timing for it, right? Really, the big thing here is clarity and providing detailed information so that we understand what tasks you're going to undertake, how your budget is matching up and lining up with those tasks, and just really clear communication on how you're going to be measuring your progress as you're moving forward within it. And again, more information, as I've said before, is available on this within the notice of funding opportunity. So as we kind of come to a close of my speaking portion, so to speak, of this webinar, a couple things I want to mention. As I've said, please read the NOFO carefully. Determine what a successful project looks like based off that notice. Ensure that you submit all required documents. Address all of the evaluation and selection criteria. Be clear and direct. Make your application easy to read and evaluate, and please do not bury key points that highlight the benefits and key elements of your project. And lastly, submit your application on time, July 3rd, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, late applications are not reviewed at all. Another thing is that we're kind of seeing over the last couple of years is verify your funding and budget amounts for consistency. Your the amount of funding request and your matches should match across all of your application to include your cover sheet, your statement of work, your project narrative, and most importantly, your SF424. If those numbers don't match, it makes it challenging for FRA to understand the actual scope that the applicant is applying for, and can make it challenging for us to provide an accurate estimation or evaluation of your application. Numbers in the columns and rows that you provide should add up properly in your budget tables and include project costs that are expected to be incurred after grant selection and are consistent with what's outlined within the notice. Please, we welcome letters of support. However, do not feel as if you need to have the letters of support be at time of application. That is not a requirement of the application. So please do not delay your application because you do not have a letter of support in time. Feel free to send those letters of support in after the application period is closed. And in general, the individuals that are going to be looking at your applications may not know about your project, may not know about the center that you're looking to establish. So understand that when you're writing your application, you need to write to a level to where the individuals do not have to make assumptions about your project, both the benefits and the challenges that it seeks to address. We want to make sure that you are writing to a point to where anyone can understand what you're looking to accomplish. So we've talked a lot about the pre-award, right? All the elements that happen before you get selected. So congratulations, your project has been selected at this point. Now what? So after projects have been selected, there's a couple more steps that we have to kind of get through. The first is the pre-obligation phase. And that phase is really kind of working out the scope, schedule, budget, identifying performance measures, really working through that grant agreement and finalizing the terms and conditions and identifying any NEPA requirements that may exist. That can take anywhere from 6 to 15 months, depending on the applicant. How the applicant and FRA kind of work to negotiate those terms and conditions. So it's just good expectation setting as we're kind of looking to it. And then, post obligation here, we have 2 years after kind of that obligation period to spend the funding, the $5 million. And again, this is $5 million is not per year. It is $2.5 million for FY22 and $2.5 million for FY23. For a combined $5 million for both fiscal years. And then, that can, take, for us, it'll take 2 years. And then the closeout is 1 to 3 months where we kind of look through final financial reconciliation and the documenting of results and outcomes.